Sue could not be with us today, so Rebecca and I are going to share the floor. So basically what we want to talk with you about today is what to do after the 471. We don't have our funding commitments yet, but you can start getting things ready so that when you get your funding commitment, you're prepared, you have all of your paperwork together, and these are some bits of advice we've gleaned from meeting with our SECA cohort across the United States, as well as information from USAC and the FCC. So basically, we're getting you prepared to file for reimbursement. So getting your paperwork ready. And I believe Rebecca's going to start.
I am. The FCDLs, just like we said, we haven't seen any of those come out yet. We do expect them to start coming through pretty soon. Here are a few facts. The equipment and or services can't be received or begin before July 1st, 2021. And the equipment or services must be delivered on or before June 30th, 2022. But you can go ahead and order your equipment. I think we talk about this a little later in the presentation about
Exactly.
ordering equipment. So here are some of our FAQs. I really don't want to read them to you, so I'll just go over what they basically say. Recurring services. This is talking about the invoice that you have 60 days within the last 60 days of the service to invoice for that service. And you cannot prepay for a year of services and then seek reimbursement. But if you do, there are vendors, I think Khajiit may be one of them, who require a prepayment. But what you do there is you can prepay and then you can get reimbursed once a month. And you can apply to be reimbursed before you pay your service provider. So if you have a binding purchase order and you have the money to pay it, or you don't have the money to pay it, you can ask for reimbursement before you pay it. And in the previous USAC seminar or webinar they just had, they were talking about how you do that. You have to prove that you paid that service provider.
And these days, Rebecca mentioned in 9.1 and 9.3 are different. The 60 days, the 30 days. So it's very, very important that once you start invoicing, you follow these guidelines for dates because they can get you in trouble.
Sure can. Okay. And this is the question about how many, the minimum number of days that the hotspots or devices must be in use or loaned out to library patrons. There is not a set minimum number of days, but just know that that may be a question that is going to come up. So be sure you know when we get to the documentation part for sure where those hotspots are, where those devices are, and who got them and when they got them. Okay.
Exactly. And you may have to have them on for a certain amount of months. If the kid turns them in, then you might need to turn that service off or maybe suspend that service. I know sometimes we used to deal with cell phones and you could suspend it and it might be $1 versus $15 to leave the service on. So you can't charge for a device, a service that's sitting on your shelf if a kid's not using it. So you need to be very careful and watch that hotspot service.
Right. Okay. And this 9.5 is a tricky one. talking about the registration with sam.gov. If you're doing SPI invoicing, you need to know that ahead of time and have a letter from that vendor indicating that they are willing to do the SPI invoicing. And they are not required, the vendors, to register in sam.gov, but you are required to, the applicant. Is that right, Roxy?
Well,
All
if
the applicants have to be registered.
yeah, you have to have a sam.gov. Your school system does, and then the 498 also helps because we're finding folks that are being asked for both. But if the service provider's billing for you, you don't have to have the sam.gov registration.
Okay.
But most people do already anyway.
Yeah,
For
I
other
haven't run
types of
across
government.
anybody who didn't have that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So here is the screenshot or the slide for the SAM registration, and where you go, here's a link so you can check that registration status if you need to.
Yeah, quick way to check it.
Okay, and what is the deadline for filing the reimbursement? The applicants may use June 30th as the service end date, and the invoicing deadline is 60 days from the date of the FCDL. Or if there's an RFCDL, it is, we'll just say it is 60 days from June 30th, 2022, your invoicing deadline.
So once again, there's that 60 days. And these are much different if you're used to working with E-rate deadlines for invoicing.
Right.
So you don't want to miss out on your money.
No, and I don't know that they're with E-rate, they're pretty stringent on those invoice deadline dates. They're not inclined to extend them unless
Yeah.
there's a very good reason.
Yeah. Okay, so here's some differences as well. What should you or your service provider submit along with your request for reimbursement, which would be the 472 or the bearer if you're an applicant, or the 474 if you're the vendor or the service provider? So here's some bullet points. So you need the date of service for non-recurring charges, or a bill date for recurring charges that is consistent with what you put on the 472 or the 474. You need a date of the service or bill that is acceptable based on the relevant funding period. So in other words, it's got to fall within that July 1 to June 30 window. The equipment or services provided have to be the same as what was approved on the Form 471, unless you had them modified, in other words, a service substitution. And it has to be at or below the same price. The service provider who provided the equipment or services has to be the same one listed on the 471 unless you did a substitution. And then your equipment has to have been delivered, or the service has to have started. Okay, so all those things have to be submitted.
And they have to match.
Yes, and it has to match. And you're probably thinking, well, I've done bears before, and there's nowhere in the world to stick those things in there. Well, you know as well as I do that they're going to find a place for you to do that, whether it's in the contact your reviewer section or somewhere else inside that portal. My guess is once you submit the bear, they're going to come right back and say, please submit A, B, C, D, E. That's my guess, just my assumption. If they're
Yeah, I
going to
don't
use,
believe they've put up the 472s yet, because they said they put them up in the portal after they start issuing FCDLs.
Yes. So there is and I'll show it to you in a little bit. There is a little spot if there's a drop down for 472 and appeal, and I'll show you in the training portal, but the actual to click on it where you can file one is not there. But if they're going to use the actual bare form that we all know and love, I can't fathom or remember that there is a spot to upload documentation with it. Maybe somebody can correct me that's filed one recently, but
I
so,
haven't filed one since February,
but I
but
don't think there's a place
unless
to
they
upload
changed it.
documents in it. But they'll ask for them.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Can the school or library submit a reimbursement request after it has received ECF supported equipment, but before it distributes the equipment to the students, staff, or patrons? Yes, you certainly can. You must have received the equipment, but you don't have to have distributed it yet. So you can go ahead and ask for your reimbursement even though you haven't actually given it out yet. I mean, some of you may be ordering a couple thousand devices, so it's certainly okay if you get that order in while you're putting it in your inventory, deciding where it's going, and getting everything labeled to go ahead and ask for your reimbursement. That's perfectly fine. Okay, now here's something that's certainly been questioned by all of us in the E-rate coordinator world, and we don't have definite answers to yet, although we're asking both USAC and the FCC about this. On your 471, you were asked about unmet needs, and according to the guidance we've been given, we've been told that you have to have documentation during the invoicing phase of the unmet need for each student, teacher, or library patron that is going to receive these, and that if you're asked for them, then you'll have to be given this, such as with the teacher certification, then they have to have given you give them a laptop and they sign this piece of paper saying, no, I don't have access to a device to use at home, or I don't have internet at home, I need this hotspot. They sign this paper, you give them this device. So, but then 1,000 questions are running through my mind. Well, what if you're just a school that provides everybody with a teacher laptop to use both at school because you don't allow personal devices on your network and they can take them home? So then that's okay because that's your rule. You don't allow personal devices on the network, so you give everybody a laptop. So that's, to me, is an unmet need. You had 6 new teachers, you buy 6 new laptops, so they sign this piece of paper. Um, so, like this statement says, we're still conferring with the FCC to gather official guidance related to the documentation, but we have some samples here, and I'll show you what they look like. By no means are that I can tell you that they are officially required, but our friends in several states are using documents like this, so we just stuck some up on our website in case you do want to have a document like this that you pass out to a parent and have them fill it out that says, my child doesn't have access to an internet, my child doesn't have access to a computer. They can fill it out, turn it back into you when you assign them this hotspot or whatever you want to give them, and then you can have this on file. We borrowed these from Tennessee. I changed them to fit North Carolina because they just had school district. I put school and school district. And there's one on here for a library as well, for a library patron, especially for libraries because you don't know who's walking off with yours. More so like I mean, you scan it with your library cards, of course, and you have your barcodes, but they might keep yours for, 6, 9, 10 months. So anyway, these documents are up on our website, and if you click on on these hyperlinks after I put this up here, or you go to our website, you'll see where these are linked. But there's an unmet needs parent certification, one for teachers, because parents decide for the children, of course, and one for library patrons. So if it comes down to the nitty gritty and the FCC says, yes, you must provide proof that these are indeed unmet needs in your school, and that these students and teachers and library patrons must provide proof that they need these pieces of hardware or internet connections, then here's a sample document. Something in addition to the surveys you may have conducted, or your inventories that you use, showing that you have X amount of students and you needed X amount of devices, or that type of thing. So like I said, we're still trying to figure all this out. I still think that the plane is being built while we're flying it. So the next thing that's going to be a big thing is your asset inventory. And yes, you should already be keeping an asset inventory for if you do E-rate for your E-rate hardware or any other type of hardware inside of your buildings. But there has to be an asset inventory for these devices covered by ECF as well. And it must go down to the individual. And we have a sample one of these on our website, and I'll show you exactly where that's at in just a minute. We also link in this PowerPoint exactly to the page. So you have to have the device type, whether it's a laptop, and I'm sorry, that should say tablet. We're missing that T. I'll fix that. The mobile hotspot, whether it's a modem or a router. It might be a bus, Wi-Fi for the bus, for example. Then put what bus it's attached to. The device make and model, the serial number, who's the person that the device is going to, the dates the device was loaned out and returned. Okay, so that all has to be in your inventory. If it's a multi-use device, like I mentioned, the one for the bus, put your bus number on there and that sort of thing. And I've linked to the asset inventory. We just have a sample one. You, of course, are free to make your own, but here's a sample one here. Devices go to individuals, devices provided that are to be shared. That would be like a bus Wi-Fi. Services that are provided to individuals. This could be your hotspot service. This could be maybe you're one of those who are actually putting a direct line to a student's home. And then services provided that are to be shared. Okay, because some people are really going out there and looking at putting some different types of connectivity to a certain area. So this is just a sample. Feel free to make your own, but it does, and here's a description of the tabs. This is something that you might find useful when doing the inventory of all of these devices. Okay? Once again, this is on our website. Okay, additional certifications you're going to be asked. Are you complying with local and state procurement requirements? Once again, you did not have to put any of this out to bid. So, but you were asked to comply with local and state procurement. So we are assuming you did that. You will have to check a box and certify that you did that. Certifying that you did not have any duplicate funding through other federal funding for COVID type relief. A non-usage certification. I'm assuming that this is that they're not going to sit on a shelf, that they are going to be assigned and used, and that you're maintaining an asset inventory. Now, records retention, just like E-rate, 10 years record retention. Okay? Keep all of your quotes. Some of you got multiple quotes for your hardware or for your hotspots and your hotspot service. Please keep all of your quotes, not just the one you went with. So When you keep this documentation, whether you keep it digitally or on paper or both, keep everything in a nice ECF folder or multiple folders, whatever. Keep all of your quotes. Keep your SPI letter if you had the SPI letter written to say that your vendor was going to do the billing for you. Keep all your forms, your 471, your 472, and any other form you file. If you file an appeal, keep that. Keep any communications between you and USAC. That means your reviewer. A lot of this was done through email. Keep every last bit of it. Also, and this is not up here, any communication between you and your vendors. Okay? Keep all of your packing slips. Yes, I know that gets bulky. Scan them in, put them in your digital file. Keep all of your invoices. Keep all of your unmet needs documentation. Keep your FCDL and your record of reimbursements. Okay? And that may include when the money goes into the account, it's going to go to finance. You have to chase your finance people down. Get a print screen showing that money was deposited and then put that into your records. Okay? That's very, very important.
Because you're also going to have proof that the invoice was paid at some
Exactly.
point in time.
Exactly. So you need to go be friends with your finance people. You need to tell them ahead of time, that you filled out this form, you've applied for reimbursement. This much money should be coming in into your bank account. Tell them to watch for it and to print that out when it comes in so that you can put it into your documentation. All right, so moving right along. We've done a page of resources for you. So our web page is on here, our ECF page. I also link USAC's ECF reimbursement information, which basically is everything that we have gone over through their FAQs. And if you sat through their webinar today, it was basically their FAQs on a slideshow. I also have linked their ECF homepage. So it has everything about ECF on there, as well as a couple videos like how to file a 471. They don't go past filing 471, unfortunately, but it's on there for you if you want some resources. Now, here's some news of note. Came out yesterday that if you filed a late or out of window ECF application in window 1, your app is being moved to window 2. So I don't know if that affects anybody on this call. Just know that if you filed an out of window application for ECF in window 1, your application is moving to the second window. So that's where it's going to be reviewed. If you're working on a waiver for that, because it has to be filed with a waiver, and you haven't got your waiver done yet, it says in this underneath this red box, don't worry about filing the waiver, you don't have to. Also note back down here in this second box, this talks about the second window. Once the window closes on the second window, October 13th, if you read what I read, they're not going to accept any out of window applications. It says we do not expect to grant waivers on the second application filing deadline. So in other words, if you miss October 13th, don't expect them to take any applications after that. Okay? So some of you may have filed in window 1, but you maybe had 2,000 more kids to come that you weren't expecting, and you want to file in window 2 as well. So if you do, that's great. You're certainly welcome to. Just make sure you make the deadline. Okay? Also, news of note, if you weren't aware, a lot of you wait till you get your funding commitment decision letter with E-rate before you do anything. You can order your ECF equipment and services. And then once you get your FCDL, file your reimbursement. Some of you have already done that. If you're just waiting, you don't have to wait, but just know that it can be risky. You can be not funded. You can be funded at a reduced rate. Your invoice could be due before you get your FCDL. There are a couple things that could happen, but if you are comfortable and you know you can cover your invoice and you want to go ahead and order your equipment, then by all means, please go ahead and do so. Especially since everybody's waiting and you don't want to get lined behind, 300,000 Chromebooks coming out of North Carolina, then certainly go ahead and order. You're more than welcome to if you haven't done so already. I mean, I know of a couple of schools who have ordered and gotten their stuff in, and they're just waiting on their funding commitment to invoice. So, like I said, you're more than welcome to do so. So, putting this all together, we're basically waiting on funding commitments so that we can file our bears. When you get your funding commitment, when you're ready to invoice, I expect to see more information rolling from USAC and the FCC on specifics about invoicing with the 472 and the 474, and specifically what they want to see uploaded and how they want to see it uploaded with the new portal. Until they're ready to roll wave one, I don't think we're going to see anything. And because there's nothing ready in the portal yet, it's probably going to be another week or two. I will show you the training portal right now. Can you see my screen?
Excuse me.
You can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If you go under My Forms and Requests.
We still see the presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Let me go back to share and pick up another screen. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, so we're in the portal now, and you can see when I drop this down, you see the word appeal, 472, and post commitment. So they're getting ready. They've at least dropped these two things in here, getting ready for commitments. But when you come over to, let me go back to actions. The only thing under actions is still file a 471. I'm assuming that you'll have an action to file the 472 once they're ready, once the first wave rolls, that will show up here. Now, for those of you who want to file for taxes that didn't get to after they closed the communications for adding taxes back after they took them off, you can file an appeal. So once the appeals open back up, and I think actions will also show an appeal, file appeal, you can ask for taxes to be added back on too, because there has been a new ruling that the cost of the device was not meant to include taxes. So we can go back and include that as well. All right. Trying to get back here. It's telling me I'm sharing two things. Okay, so I believe there were some questions in the chat, so I'm going to go to the chat. And I'm going to scroll to the top. It says on a 60-day FCDL timeline for equipment delivery, what if the vendor cannot provide equipment within 60 days due to COVID shortages? So that's 60 days to pay them after you receive it. So you order it, after you get it, you have 60 days to pay them. That's what that 60 days is. Okay, I'm sorry. So you didn't see my screen that had the inventory on it. My apologies. Sometimes I forget which of these things I'm using, and I don't often show all my screens. So let me go back to that. My apologies. And when I'm sharing, I can't see the chat either. Okay, so I believe I am sharing the inventory now. Can someone please acknowledge?
Yes, we're on
Yes, you are.
device.
Thank you. My apologies. My apologies. Okay, so this would be, there is a description tab for the inventory. And this is a screen for devices for individuals, type, and there's drop downs. Make and model, serial, date loaned out, date return. There's a tab for devices that are to be shared. Services provided for individuals, services provided to be shared. Certainly take this, change it, do whatever you want to with it. It is just a sample. Yes, we stole it. They said we could steal it, and so we stole it. So like I said, it's just a sample. If you don't want to create your own, certainly please steal it. It's on our website. So I think the drop downs are very helpful, and certainly if you could get anything to import into this Excel spreadsheet from your vendor, or anything else to import that you don't have to hand key all this, that would be great. Or just add it to what you already have. So, but at least it's there if you're starting from scratch and you don't have to build something yourselves. So, okay, so let me take you over to our website, and if I can get this to behave itself. Okay, I think I'm in the right spot. So this is linked on the resources page as well. This is our emergency connectivity fund page. I have put in a note about the new window, and there's just some links coming down through here. When you get to, here's the inventory tracker I mentioned. It's kind of like mid-page, and there's a few other things on here. When you get to the bottom, here are the sample unmet needs certification sheets that are on here as well. And the USAC links are on here as well. The sam.gov is on here. The actual orders on here. So we just add a few things on here as well. The trainings and outreach page for ECF is where I will post this webinar. And so that's where you'll find this one. But that's our resources page. Okay.
Roxy, thank you so much for putting that all together. That's been really helpful, I think, for everyone to have access to all that data and getting it put up there as it came in drips and drabs.
You're
And still
welcome.
continues to come that way.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. With regards to inventory tracking, do devices paid for with this funding need to be labeled as such? That's a very good question. I have not seen anywhere where that is required. If you label your devices, it might not hurt. You know, a certain color sticker, or just put it in a name. I haven't seen that as a requirement, though. That's a very good question. But I cannot say
I
I've
think
seen that.
putting the FRN number on a device, if you can, is always helpful. So you know you can look it up immediately if you've got that FRN number.
Exactly. And the FRN number is a funding request number, in case you don't know. And the FRNs for this program start with ECF. And so that's really might be all you need because that labels it with this program name with ECF. So, all right. So the next question is, what is the Form 498? I was told that would be needed. So a Form 498 comes from the E-rate world. And what it is a banking form. And it contains all of the banking information, your Dun and Bradstreet number, your tax ID number, all that sort of information, your bank account number, the name of your bank, who your accounting person is at your school, which is your financial contact and all that. And so you fill out that form, and in the E-rate world, when you complete a bear form or a reimbursement form and the Treasury Department sees it, it knows where to send the electronic funds transfer. So with this, we were told that the 498 wouldn't be necessary if you had the SAMS.gov account set up because it should have the same financial tracking information because it's not coming through the Treasury Department. It's coming through another route through the government. And as long as your Dun and Bradstreet number and the, what was it, the EIN number was in there, that the 498 wouldn't be necessary. But I've since had several schools tell me that they've been contacted by USAC and said the 498 was required. So it can be found, if you do E-rate, it can be found inside the EPC portal, the other portal, and it takes a couple weeks to get that totally complete and get your 498 ID. And any of us, Rebecca, Sue, or myself, can help you through that process. But you will need help from your financial person because they have all the banking information. Are there any other questions? As I said, you may not have heard anything new today. We certainly didn't. We were hoping to get lots of good information today from them. But this is what we know so far. And I'm hoping as we get closer to them sending out a wave, they'll be more generous with information in terms of invoicing and the 472 being live inside of the portal. As soon as it goes live, we will jump on here and do something else with you guys and get that, you know, at least show you how it works, where it's located, and that sort of thing. So another question, can we still apply for 2021 reimbursements? Not yet, not in the second window. So everything that is ECF related right now is for 21-22. They have made no mention of reimbursements for anything that happened in 2021. Everything ECF, both window 1 and window 2, is 21-22. Okay, if there's nothing else, you know you can reach out to Rebecca, Sue, or myself at any time, phone or email. We'll be happy to answer your questions. And please keep a watch of your emails. As we find out information, we'll be sure to let you know. And keep your fingers crossed that the wave will roll very, very soon. I will post this recording as soon as we can get it ready. And I hope you all take care and stay safe. Have a good afternoon.